one. And we are recording, not streaming, recording. The shows haven't been live in like a month or so. But on Thursday, April 24th, 2025 at 12:37 p.m. Eastern Time with my friend Mr. James Koutoulas, who's been on here multiple times before. I think first three, I think it was probably
Bachelor
from,
status, baby.
yeah, no, I think no, and yeah, but I was thinking like, how did I? No, it started with the LGB.
Back at like 20, 21.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, no, that was you were in the first 30% or so. Yeah, I'm 1700 episodes in, so but I think you were in the first probably 500, which actually is, it sounds stupid,
Dude,
but it is kind of like in the as the show gets on, the range of like the OGs gets bigger. At first it was like they're the first five guests. Now I'm like, you got in under episode 400. To me, that's like inner circle. But for everybody listening, go
oh,
to the
Carlos,
description.
bro. Carlos made the connect.
Yeah, oh yeah, he did. For everybody listening, go to the description. Please go follow him on Instagram. Please go follow him on Twitter. Talking about LGB coin, which yeah, that is how we got to know each other. Somebody gifted me LGB coin. I think, and for everybody listening, it's Let's Go Brandon when that started. And full disclosure, I did buy some last week. I just try to be on the only currency I truly have with
Welcome
my
to the
guests is
team, baby.
yeah.
Let's
But
go.
I always say this: the only true currency I have with my guests is that I'm honest. That's really all I have. I don't have the numbers. I don't have the sponsors, so I just try to be honest. So, but could you kind of explain or for real quick, could you tell people like who you are? Because you're not just some random dude. I mean, you have quite an accomplishment early on in your legal career.
Yeah, so I'm kind of a jack of all trades, computer programmer, started a hedge fund on my credit cards in the financial crisis, got that right. Also have a law degree. Couple years after the financial crisis, the world's biggest commodity broker went bankrupt because this guy, John Corzine, who's former CEO of Goldman Sachs, governor and senator from New Jersey, one of Obama and Hillary's biggest donors, he decided, hey, I'm going to bet all the firm's capital on one trade, lever it up 30 to 1 in the UK, hide it from the credit rating agencies. And then, oh, when people find out and our credit gets downgraded, I'm going to raid my customers' segregated trust accounts and use their money to meet the margin call on my own trading, right? So he did that. It went bankrupt Halloween 2011. My litigation experience at that point was an $8,000 collection case for my golf pro. Never took a class in bankruptcy. But I had two customers who had managed accounts there. I'm like, bros, I'm gonna do what I can to help out. So I filed one motion on their behalf. A couple days later, I'm on the front page of the New York Times business section in a black trench coat looking scary, actually in front of Trump Tower. You can't quite see it. Trump, it's like I'm here, and Trump Tower is like kind of here, like out of frame. But anyway, that triggered like 1,000 phone calls a day to the point where my little sister was hearing phone calls in her sleep, literally. Like it was insane. And basically, me, her, and this guy, John Rowe, who is the son of a congressman, we took on like JP Morgan, the trustee from Lehman Brothers, Obama's attorney general, Clinton's FBI director. They spent like 2.4 billion in fees. We raised 167,000 in donations. Me and, kind of my quasi-autistic fashion, guaranteed victory in national TV on CNBC without any malpractice insurance or any, experience or anything. But, we backed it up. We got people all 6.7 billion back plus 1 penny, 101 cents on a dollar. So that was fun. But anyway, yeah, on the 10-year anniversary of that, which again was like Halloween, 2011, I dressed up as this cool new meme at the time called Let's Go Brandon. So, it was me as the president of China. I had like a communist tank top, like
Yeah.
a China mask of Xiao Jinping, right? And then a blow up doll that was then wearing a Biden mask, and had a sign around its neck that said, Let's Go Brandon. And I just got a new car. I had this buddy, Josh. He's a MAGA guy. He was flying back from New Jersey. I actually bought the car in New Jersey because they wanted a 20% premium to MSRP down here in Miami, right? So I took my little 8 pound dog. We flew up to New Jersey, bought the car, did like a 6,000 mile road trip. So all of the, my clients and stuff that I hadn't seen in a couple of years because of COVID, right? Raised a couple $100 million actually on the road trip. It was very productive, and my dog liked it. But anyway, I'm ordering my Halloween. I always order Halloween costumes like, a week or two before Halloween to have it like,
Have it
topical
ready.
and culturally relevant and whatnot, right? So I'm ordering this in like some random hotel. The stuff comes in is like the Wednesday before Halloween. My bro's flying in. He's like, bro, I want to see the car, right? So I go to the airport to pick him up. But I dress up as this Let's Go Brandon thing, and he walks out. He's like videotaping, right? And as he's videotaping, I'm just fake banging the blow up doll over the hood of my car.
Yeah,
And
trying to fucking over the US, of course.
yeah, right. So anyway, he takes a video of that. He posts it on Instagram. I regram it. Then this girl who I hadn't met at the time, Alex Giuliani, sees this and she's like, that should be a coin. And I'm like, LGB coin. I love it. I tell our crypto PM, he tells a buddy, the buddy makes it. It goes viral in like a week. So it went up to like $400 million in a week, just, straight joke, meme coin,
Yeah.
whatever. And then we're like, okay, shit, this is like a real thing now. So it's like, how do we use this to help? And so, we really were outspoken advocating against vax mandates, COVID lockdowns, social media deplatforming of people like President Trump, like Dr. Robert Malone, right? And, we're donating a lot to conservative charities. So like Turning Point,
Hmm.
Institute. I volunteer with these, vets with disabilities called Aquanauts. They get adaptive dive therapy. So we're like, okay, this, we got this blessing. How do we pay it forward a little bit, right? So then, a couple weeks in, one of my buddies owns a sports team, and he's like, bro, I talked to my lawyers. They're like, since Brandon was present at the time the coin or the phrase was conceived, you got to go get his name, image, and likeness rights,
Yeah.
right? Or else they could just cease and desist
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
down to zero, and then everyone's hosed, right? So we go do that, and we meet Brandon. Brandon's a great guy, right? He had like lost all his sponsorships because of this, and it was the happiest day of his life, like winning at Talladega. And then he gets associated with the phrase, which really triggered the left, right? Because it's the crowd's chanting "fuck Joe Biden." Then the reporter says,
Yeah.
"Oh,
Let's go, Brandon.
saying let's go, Brandon, isn't that great?" So to me, and look, guys like Governor DeSantis, who's Harvard law guy, very sharp guy. It's like, look, the phrase isn't about saying "fuck Joe Biden," right? Like it's not a Neanderthal thing, but it's a great double entendre because it shows that the media was gaslighting us, and they were gaslighting us so many things, right? Like the COVID jab,
Safe and effective. It's
working at 6 foot, social distancing,
yeah.
the all that's
It's
just
it's
dumb,
a
right?
perfect encapsulation of the whole just lying through their teeth to your face, telling you not to trust your ears.
Yeah, and look, I'm a weirdo. I like fighting like big, powerful people for free, right? So, I like lean into this, whole advocacy stuff and like what we could do for charity and, donate a lot to like President Trump's charity out of that, a bunch of different political candidates, like host fundraiser for them, was really aggressive going into the midterms there. And then anyway, we did the deal with Brandon's team. They got a huge swath of coin for that, right? And then, they submitted to NASCAR. NASCAR approved it in writing. They had a bunch of cars painted with the logo. It was pretty beautiful. Like the
Yeah.
logo was on the hood, you got stars and stripes on the side. It's a beautiful car, right? So anyway, the team sends out a press release. Point goes over 571 million. Then NASCAR starts getting heat from the left, their television sponsors, whoever, right? And then they decide, they literally say, right, we've got to create some distance here. Okay, so then they start this malicious libel campaign against us. They go to the media, they basically imply that we made it all up because rather than saying, hey, we approved this in writing, they're like, this was never approved. We told them it would never be approved, which just isn't true, right? And there's even an email where USA Today calls them or emails them, and they're like, hey, USA Today just hit us up. What do you want to do? And they say, quote, add them to the libel list and then go and libel us to USA Today, right? And so, Coin lost 380 million in one day. Um, then one of the team owners breached his contract that had selling restrictions in it, created this fork called Let's Go. Just started selling the shit out of it while I was having dinner with Peter Thiel, Donald Trump Jr., Kimberly Guilfoyle, at Peter's house, right? Working to get the coin righted after NASCAR cost us 380 million in damages in one day, right? And then we were going to sue them. We wind up settling with them. So Let's Go became the operative coin, still is the operative coin. Then, Jorge Masvidal joined the project, Trump Jr., Trump Sr. I introduced Sr. at American Freedom Tour in front of 10,000 people. This was actually his first crypto. So this was back in like March of 2022. So like almost 3 years before Trump coin was a thing, right? So, we were very instrumental in educating conservatives and the administration of, the power of crypto. And you've had a lot of meme coins out there, and most of them are just jokes. And while this started as a joke, I think, we really did some meaningful, legit advocacy. I mean, people have told me that, we stopped them from getting COVID jabs, stuff like that. So, who knows? We might have even saved lives with this project. But anyway, right after Trump comes on board, I get frivolously sued. These guys, they file two illegal shotgun pleadings. The guy who sued me, literally in writing, has said this is all NASCAR's fault. James is an American hero, bringing the conservative movement in the 21st century, trying to book me on other podcasts. Not as cool as this one, right? But totally frivolous lawsuit. They sue like Candace Owens and David
Yeah.
Harris Jr. and Fleckas and all these Republican influencers who had bought into the coin, right? It's not like we were like paying them or anything. They just believed what we were doing, and really caused 3 years of carnage for 11,000 coin holders who already got screwed by NASCAR, then get screwed by this frivolous lawsuit, right? And then the SEC piggybacks on the frivolous lawsuit. They subpoena me, Candace, yada yada yada. So I sue them, and at the time, Gary Gensler, who crypto people will know, is a total scumbag, right? And he actually had been my nemesis back to those MF Global days because he was chairman of the CFTC. John Corzine, the guy who caused that bankruptcy, was his mentor at Goldman Sachs. They actually worked on the Hillary campaign together, right? And so Gensler is
That's
like the
true.
swampiest of all swamp creatures. Like in MF Global, he recused the entire CFTC from the bankruptcy, even though they were the prudential regulator over the case, handed over a securities insurance company, which made it way slower. And that's why I really had to get involved. I did all for free, right? Like thousands of hours for free, 6.7 billion recovered, going against Gensler. And then Gensler was later found by the inspector general that he was communicating with Corzine on his personal email to evade federal record retention, right? So this is the guy now subpoenaing me. So I sue him. Now, then we sue NASCAR, right? So 3 lawsuits over this. So now, the frivolous class action, it's like 28 of 29 defendants are gone. Of course, we have an Obama activist judge who even after now the after I sued the SEC actually has closed the investigation, said we can't even make a good faith allegation that the coin is a security. We can't make any allegations of wrongdoing, right? And then this Obama judge hurries and tries to certify a securities class action against me, even though the guy suing me admitted like 8 different times that it's not a security. They admitted in their complaint. They admit I reasonably rely on NASCAR. There was one guy bragging that he insider traded the coin, but that's okay because it's not a security, right? And then this Obama judge is still trying to mess with me. So that's not going to the 11th Circuit, but I beat the SEC. Now, NASCAR, we won all 4 counts on the motion to dismiss. As of now, trial is set June 2nd. That might slip until the fall. Unfortunately, we actually just lost our motion to add punitive damages for actual malice. That is appealable, so we are immediately appealing that. It's in Florida State Court, so it's I think the Third Circuit of Florida. So hopefully we get that back. Our trial counsel actually just beat CNN in the first ever actual malice verdict against a major national news network. CNN maliciously defamed a Navy veteran. So, they won a trial, won punitives, and then CNN settled before the punitive number was awarded, right? So, we think it's a pretty big number.
Yeah.
So, look, I'm a stubborn bastard. I did MF Global over 2 years for free. I did another bankruptcy called PFG for free, helped get 300 million back. This one, they've come after my company, they've come after my reputation, they've come after 11,000 conservatives who, believe in what we were doing in terms of advocacy. So this all gloves are off on this one. So we appreciate you joining the project too.
Of course. And but no, I mean, you are an inspiring person. And I mean that as someone who started the podcast, like right when COVID started, and I got banned from everything. Like before Dr. McCullough and Dr. Malone went on Rogan, they'd been on my show several times, and I got banned from YouTube with them. And Like I
I
do know,
remember that.
yeah, I do. I can actually say like I know what it's like to go up against in. I mean, YouTube's. I mean, what's the market cap of YouTube or it's Meta or Alphabet? Then we know that the CDC, the DHS, the WHO. We know through the Twitter files. We know that they had backroom portals into YouTube, into Instagram, into and allegedly. They had all the, I know what it's like to kind of go up and there's nothing to appeal to. You go, well, who do I talk to? You go, and this, and you get, they go, shut up. And you go to Rumble, and Rumble's grown leaps and bounds. But 4 or 5 years ago, you're like, what is this? Like, why shouldn't I just fold? And, I know what it's like financially to like meet all of YouTube's requirements for getting monetized and then them banning me. Like, I do know what it's, and I would say it's worked in that I've maintained my soul. I've somehow managed to make it so it can pay rent, and I have made all these great contacts, and the show's growing. And I think ultimately I'll look back and say this was a blessing. It made me work harder, made me rely less on algorithms and blah blah blah. But it's actually kind of a rare thing where I can say no, I do actually know what it's like to go up against these monolithic $1 trillion behemoths, and to do it, and to know you're doing the right thing, and to actually go, man, are they going to screw me? I was with Dr. McCullough once, and he's like, yeah, I mean, they might just kill me. He said that about him, and I was like, yeah. And he's like, and you, and I was like, all right, and like that could, I mean, whatever. My point is, but you won, and to me, that's like a wildly optimistic thing. I mean, I wrote an essay in college about Tank Man in Tiananmen Square and how the Chinese didn't win because that image got out. Sure, they killed the guy, but the image got out. And it's still, to this day, it's up as a meme of like what it means to stand against the undefeatable, the ineffable power. And when I look at something like you winning against MF Global, I do look at it as like an inspiring thing to be like, no, you can do the right. I wouldn't say I've won against YouTube. I haven't gotten a penny from them, but in my own way, I know I have because the show's still here. It's still moving forward. But I think in general, so if people ask you like, well, then why are you going after this coin? It was a meme. It's not about that, man. It's about there really is this last 5 years for me, and I can speak for only myself, has truly kind of showed me it's not your turn. You take what's yours or it's taken from you. And if you can't defend what little thing, Tommy, why don't you just, because this is my podcast, this is my thing, shut up. Like this is my thing and it's my baby and I will defend it to the death. And you do have to do that because we also see, like you said about the Let's Go Brandon, like you can see what it manifests as to where you can hear it. You can,
Hey, people are going to jail over memes now.
that's what I mean is it
That's the
doesn't
thing,
stop.
if you let people get away with defaming you,
It does
with
not stop.
destroying, 380 million in value for their own fans in one day, 500 million in 3 weeks, you let them go get away with it, then it never ends. It gets
No,
worse. And, then you're going to jail for a meme is the next step. So, you know what? Rights only exist as long as you're willing to fight for them. And,
yeah,
and look, there's no pride in being a martyr, right? And
no,
look, people, they've cost me a lot of money. They've damaged my business, damaged my reputation. I get libeled by my neighbors. I mean, like a lawyer here wrote like a 48-page letter accusing me of being a fraud and stuff. I mean, but you know what? I'm suing him too. Okay. And when you work as hard as I have to help people and to earn a sterling reputation and do everything right in the asset management business for 17 years, you libel me, you're gonna regret it.
and it is if you don't stop. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's Soviet-esque. I know that's a tired analogy, but it really, if you have a good TV, you can see their mouths, you can hear them. Fuck Joe, but same thing. I'm from New England, and my dad always laughs that wherever the Red Sox are, even if it's not the Red Sox, even if it's the Patriots, you'll still hear like Yankees suck or fuck the Yankees, and the announcers are always like they're yelling something we don't know what, and the whole thing is everyone knows what it is, but you can't say it on national TV. But my point is it is perfectly encapsulated that they're saying fuck Joe Biden and they're
Well,
telling you to your
it is, right?
face.
So DeSantis, right after all this happened with NASCAR, DeSantis had the ball, and we didn't donate to him or anything, right? I never met DeSantis at that point. I did later on, right? But he went up, he did an interview. He's like, look, I don't have a problem with LGB coin. What NASCAR did is wrong, right? They were gaslighting everybody. And you know what? When Trump was in office before then, They said whatever they want. And he's like, but that was fine, right? That's freedom of speech. You could say fuck Trump, and that's a constitutionally
Yes.
protected speech. But you know what? They don't like it when the shoe's on the other foot. And Biden deserved it too. Okay. And all of this soulless dystopian globalist policies and lockdowns and censorship, and all the shit that at least for now we've stopped because we didn't let Kamala cheat again, right? And steal a second election, right? Like it's really important to fight that stuff.
And it again, it's like you have to there, you said it correctly. There is no pride in being a martyr. There's like nothing cool about it. Like it's not. I mean, if it happens, it happens. But you're also like, at the same time, I don't care. There are easier ways to, put your name, whatever. Go do something good in the community. It's not about that. It's about hitting back when. And for me, it was never. I was never able to take down some giant corporation like this. But you know, being friends with Dr. Malone or Dr. McCullough and being able to have this guy on.
Holder.
What?
Malone's a holder.
Yeah, Malone's awesome. Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. But like to be able to have him on and be like, okay, and like I remember the first time I did a show, I was like, I know I'm on Rumble. I know I'm like a pro-Trump guy. You don't have to like me, but I was like, this is the guy that holds the mRNA patents. Like, you have the floor, sir. Like, what is going on? When you have them telling you everything, and then you have companies saying that's misinformation, in your heart of hearts it's wrong. And you have to do something because then you're lying to yourself. Then you're lying to yourself. And again, I didn't have an awesome victory like you did, but there's a lot too. The reason I keep harping on it is it's not a coin. It's not, well, why didn't you just stop doing COVID episodes? It's not that, man. If you do not stop, the water keeps rising. If you're not emptying it out, it keeps rising. The mold is growing, the cancer is spreading. You have to kill it. You have to kill it in its tracks because it will take you over.
Yeah, and listen, here's the thing too, right? Like give yourself a little more credit because you have like dangerous people on, right? And that helps, right? It's something that went global. Like the media hadn't been totally corrupted back then, right? I had like Fortune calling me the boy wonder and CNBC, I'm the white knight, and Forbes published me declaring war on JP Morgan, and the New York Times is actually what started it all. So, publications, back in 2011 were crucial to that victory, right? And people give me credit, but they don't give credit to like my little sister who learned to be a paralegal, on the fly at 23, or John Rowe who like put his brokerage business on hold, to do legal research and write briefs and get us meeting with congressmen, and they don't give credit to the reporters like Rick Santelli, who had me on every week, despite, JP Morgan calling him and saying, we're going to pull all our advertising nationwide if you have that motherfucker on again, right? So now that media is all corrupt, guys like you who, are struggling to pay the bills, and still doing it every day and giving, people like me and Malone, voices, it's actually more important than ever. So,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
even
It's
if you might not get like the headline credit, you do deserve credit.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, no, it's you do have. I mean, it's you have to. The dog's growling at like the baby. You gotta like, hey, you gotta boop it on the no. Hey, don't do that. You don't do that. Stop it because something much worse is gonna come if you don't do that. And so, I mean, and there also has to kind of be there is something to taking them down a notch. If you don't ever hit back, they remain this
Well,
monolith.
bullies aren't used to getting punched in the mouth, right? Like the
No.
SEC went and fucked with a lot of crypto companies, sued them all and stuff. They weren't thinking little old me was going to sue them first, right? And they weren't ready for it. They lied in a fucking sworn affidavit, right? I mean, like, they try to fuck with me, but, it's not really a good idea.
So realistically, in what's coming in I guess, the coming weeks and months, I mean, I don't know what you can speculate on what's going to come of this coin, and then secondary effects. What effects does that have on somebody's like, I don't know what this coin is. I don't give a fuck. I'm never going to buy it. What effect is it? So first, what's going to happen with this case, and then secondary effects. How does this affect, I don't know, the crypto landscape at large?
Yeah, I mean, so look, we're different. There's like 13,000 meme coins or something, or actually, sorry, 30,000 meme coins out there. Most of them are just jokes. There's really no
Yeah.
substance, right? But we're a true advocacy project. It wasn't just a joke, right? I mean, three lawsuits at once for 3 years. I've got about 2.5 million and out of pockets and time into this. I'm very committed to it. And look, it was Trump's first coin. Trump Jr. Was on board, and they kind of left us hanging a little bit after all the lawsuits started filing. But we have real people, who bought in and did a lot of advocacy, and they took a lot of heat. Guys like DC Drano and David Harris Jr. and stuff. I mean, all those guys put their money where their mouth is, and a lot of their followers, came in and they got fucked by NASCAR when NASCAR did was illegal. Okay, so we're taking it to them. So right now we've won the motion to dismiss on all four counts. It's in state court, so the order of operations is a little more fluid than in federal court, right? But right now there's like five limited summary judgment motions brief, like two by us, three by them. We've got this appeal on whether or not we could pursue punitive damages for their actual malice at trial. There's motions on, they're called motions eliminate, which are things that you move to have the judge exclude from the trial. So NASCAR actually has asked the judge to not allow me to give my background and talk about my pro bono work at trial. Literally, NASCAR doesn't want the jury to hear all the free work that I've done for, fraud victims.
Wait, that's it's like I did an episode the other day of the guy who's like, researching the assassination attempt on Trump. And I had my buddy Dale on, who's the youngest ever member of Delta Force, CIA Ground Branch, Black Ops. And I'm talking to the other guy, John Cullen. And then I realized halfway through, I'm like, wait, I'm good friends with Dale. A lot of people don't know who he is. I'm like, in case anyone's wondering who this dude is with the handlebar mustache, this guy has been an assassin for 40 years doing black ops shit. Um, Imagine if somebody told me I'm not allowed to just real quick verify who Dale is. Why is he here? And because
Yeah, right.
otherwise it's like, who's that guy? Is that my uncle? What is he doing? That's, I mean, how is that not malice or deception? I don't know anything about law. I have a biology degree. How is that not deception or libel or slander or
Yeah, I would be withholding relevant information, right? But our judge has been a very like stern but fair judge. I
sure.
I don't think that she's going to grant that motion to exclude it, right? But we'll see. Trial right now is it's set for June 2nd. I imagine that's going to slip probably until the fall, like towards the end of the year, because this appeal on the punitives. But I think it's worth watching. I think it's worth to see if we can get another David versus Goliath and beat a multi-billion-dollar corporation who thinks they could just screw over 11,000 of their fans and libel people without any consequence. And I think we've got very good chances. And then the Let's Go Brandon Foundation, which owns sizable portion of the first coin, right? Anything that we recover in damages, that's just going to go by Let's Go back on the market, right? Because you got a lot of people who are still engaged in the project. They like our advocacy, they like our charity. So even though we've lost a lot of kind of our influencers out there in media because they libeled us and people kind of like, oh, I don't want to get in the middle of that fray. There are conservatives who continue to support the project, and I think if we beat NASCAR, that they will benefit from the foundation's buyback.
and then and I don't know if you can even predict it or but what would be the secondary effects? A court case precedent happens and then that ripples throughout society and over the decades. What would
Yeah,
be, if any, what would be the effects?
well, so I don't think there's any like groundbreaking legal precedent. I
Sure.
do from a cultural standpoint, like a meme coin going and beating a major sports league is a huge precedent, just like it was a huge precedent for our trial counsel to go beat CNN. They got the first ever actual malice verdict against a major national news network, and things like that. When people are writing 100 million plus checks, for malicious conduct, maybe they think harder about it the second time. I mean, that's why punitive damages exist, right? So it's, look, we had the 380 million in direct damage in one day, 500 million in 3 weeks. But, if you get punitives and it's a multiple of that, then, you're really going to think hard the next time before you decide to go, libel someone.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get that. And then And then for kind of, the way I look at it is obviously I hope it works. This podcast has been cobbled together by a series of miracles and luck. And I'm starting to think it's less and less luck. The more times that happens, I'm starting to think it's God or someone looking down on me. But I
Yeah, a lot of
do,
it's just controlling your own destiny. Like if you look at like Hormozy, who's like one of my favorite influencers, he says, a lot of times success is just doing the same thing over and over and over, way past the point, being bored of it. But it's like you put the ball and play enough, you're gonna hit a home run eventually.
I feel like it's opening a safe. It's like you can sit there. Sometimes I forget my safe combination, but I'll just be like sitting there turning it, and then finally you start to feel it, just the smallest amount of resistance. If you're not turning it, it doesn't, you'll never hit that resistance. Now you can turn. Now, granted, this is a 5 second endeavor, but just stretch that out over 5 years or 50 years. If you're not trying, if you're not, clicking the revolver, you're never actually going to hit the round when it does happen. And that's kind of how I look at it. And I think I was actually saying this with Dr. Malone last week. For me personally, if I know I tried to do the right thing and things that I legitimate, not random shit, stupid political mudslinging. I mean, having on doctors who are saying, don't get this shot, do not give it to babies, or they're going to have heart attacks when they shouldn't have a heart attack until they're 70. Something as pure as that. Don't give this drug to a baby because its heart's going to explode. You can't be more comic book villain than that. Knowing
And
I had them
that,
on,
and that's a virus that the federal government funded, gain
well, and
function
created, yeah, and released.
create,
And yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just be clear there.
Yeah, that, regardless of what it is, for something like that, where I'm like, this is so clear cut that I have to do it. My point is even though it crushed me financially and it destroyed, I run a media business and I'm banned from iTunes and YouTube. That's stupidity squared. But there's a piece, and this is what I was saying with Dr. Malone, and he said he has the same thing. He can just lay down by himself, alone with his thoughts, not want to run away from your own thoughts. Whenever you've done something wrong, when you've done something wrong, or you're a kid, you were wrong. It just sits with you and it eats at you. I don't have that. And I know I've done the right thing. And people could say, well, how does that affect my bank account? Not well, but for whatever it's worth and wherever this does go, there's a clarity of conscience that I mean, I suppose you can get with a lot of alcohol and Xanax, but that goes away. And you eventually, come back to. So not that you need, my spiritual lecturing, but that's what I would say is just keep doing the right thing. There's an interior piece that can't be mimicked and can't be bought. And I think ultimately that's all we do have. So I don't really know where I'm going with that. But um James, as I told you, I'm probably gonna shit my brains out. So we're gonna wrap this up.
I don't know if we need that on the record, but I think you could just say you need to take a break. I think it's time to go.
Nah,
You got
I'm honest. I'm
something to do.
honest. I've lost almost 40 pounds in 6 months through nothing but like chicken and it has effects. So, but dude, as always, thank you for coming on. Thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for being an optimistic figure for people who probably like me at times want a black pill because it's easy. It's good to see an inspiring figure and go, God damn, all right, no, it can be done. So I legitimately mean that. I think you're a good person, and I think you do great stuff, and I respect the hell out of it.
Back at you, bud. I appreciate
Oh,
it. It's
you.
always great to talk. Now go take care of your business.
Yeah, I will. I will. All right, brother. Thank you so much for your time.